Hi, this is my Community Intervention Project Part 3. My name is Charlie Birchmeyer. So my identified issue of choice is ADHD. This stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. It is a neurodevelopmental issue that develops in the early childhood. During this, children have trouble paying attention, sitting still. They could be impulsive or they may show signs of behavior that could be troubling. Children with ADHD can be diagnosed when they're young, but they also can be diagnosed in adolescence or early adulthood. They could cause problems in school, their extracurricular activities, making friends, and even family problems. What is my target population? The target population could be male or female around the age of 3 or older who have developed ADHD. They can be of any race, culture, ethnicity, or they could speak any language. They can live in any location around the world, rural or suburban, state, city, it does not matter, country. They could have single parents, divorced parents, parents who are together, raised by another family member, guardians, even adopted. It's actually shown to be seen in other siblings as well, and these children with ADHD are actually seen to have smaller areas of the brain compared to others who do not have ADHD. And so those are affected by ADHD are actually babies who have a premature birth, low birth rate, epilepsy, or brain damage in the early or late childhood. When does ADHD arise? So it's actually a normative developmental issue passed through genetics and tend to run in the family. So when the child is placed in the environment, ADHD is actually able to peek through and become present in the child's behavior. So it's actually shown to come out during the ages of 6 to 12 in children, and during this time, children are just adapting to the school, to learning, to listening, to playing with others, to developing those social skills. So they may show signs of not being able to sit still, they may not be able to be quiet, they may not be able to focus, they might show signs of bad behavior or not following directions. This is typical signs of toddlers and preschoolers that have ADHD. And they are actually very active. They are not attentive to schoolwork. They could be very emotional or very impulsive or frustrating at times, and they may not be able to focus. So this age period of 6 to 12 is actually an important milestone for these children because if left untreated, this could develop poor self-esteem that the child may exhibit later in life, and they may not have the social skills or the interaction to make friends, and this can actually shape their personality and their behavior and their attitude and cause physical inabilities because these children actually lack coordination and are shown to be more accident prone compared to other children who do not have ADHD. So this actually leaves children behind compared to their peers. More on ADHD. It is actually more likely to be shown in males and females, 2 times to be exact. The male population is shown to have 12% compared to the females of 4.7%. So males may show signs of hyperactivity, aggressive, they lack the effort in school, and they are more likely to be diagnosed around the age of 7 compared to females that are diagnosed around the age of 12, and they can show signs of being what people call immature. They could be very talkative, daydreamy, friendly, or squirmish, but they actually do well in school. So, children who have ADHD are also more likely to have cognitive developmental issues such as learning disabilities or language developmental disorders. So, 15 to 20% of these children with ADHD also have learning disabilities such as dyslexia, compared to another 30 to 35% of these children with ADHD who actually have language disorders that may have to have therapy to help with speaking. So it is actually more likely to be shown in white children compared to African American or Hispanic children, and this could also be due to the lack of data that we have altogether on children with ADHD, and is actually more likely to be shown in rural areas compared to urban areas. So I actually looked up 3 methods of research that were done to explore this issue of ADHD, and the first issue was called the effectiveness of physiotherapy techniques in children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So the hypothesis here was children who have ADHD can use therapies to help with their issues. So physical therapy and physiotherapy were done, and data was concluded to test on how well these children did with both of them, and if one was more better to use than the other. Another was the prevalence and correlates of attention deficit disorder risk factors among school children in rural areas of North India. So the hypothesis here were children who have ADHD in the school may show signs of difficulties to perform well in their academics, may show signs of social interactions, and have low self-esteem due to their home life. And the last one was migraine deficit hyperactivity disorder and screen time in children attending Sarah Langton Terry Care Facility. Are they associated? So here the hypothesis was migraines could be linked to the amount of screen time with ADHD children. So were these successful or no? I found that most of these were successful, and here's why. So in my first research, the children who have ADHD can use therapies to help with their issues such as anxiety. So yes, data was actually shown that when physiotherapy and psychology as well as physical therapy were used, this actually helped reduce the symptoms and signs of ADHD, which I find this is extremely helpful in studying ADHD, because this can actually help patients who have ADHD and parents and teachers get their kids back on track. And for my second one, the children who have ADHD in school and the presence increases the difficulties perform based on their home life, I thought that yes, it did help, but no, because there was not enough data, because it only showed data of kids that lived in rural areas of government-funded schools, not of private schools, not of urban areas. So the data actually showed that those with ADHD are shown to live in a joint family with a low income or low middle class income, which I thought was pretty helpful, just so teachers and parents could use this data to maybe help themselves with living in these rural areas. And finally, for my last research, could migraines be linked to the amount of screen time with children with ADHD? I found this one actually the most helpful and successful out of all these, because it actually does show that those who have ADHD and the amount of screen time, actually they have more migraines compared to those that do not have ADHD in the same amount of screen time. So I find that this is super helpful, because maybe we need to limit the amount of screen time and reduce these migraines. So did this research meet the population's needs? In my eyes, it met all 3 needs of the population. It's a reminder that my target population was young children attending preschool, live in any location, rural or urban, any race or ethnicity, any parent or guardian. So I thought that those who the research that used children who had ADHD to test which therapy, this was super helpful, as I mentioned, and more research and data that we can conduct and actually help those with ADHD improve. And those that live in the rural area, when they just took a random set of the children and tested for ADHD, they actually showed which class of children best fit into those who developed ADHD, and this could also be helpful, but I thought that we also needed to test the population of the urban and just compare the two for more research and data, so we can make a firm conclusion. and a solution in the future. Finally, children with those common migraines that were shown to be linked to the amount of screen time with those children with ADHD, I found this was super helpful. Therefore, we can limit and conduct more research and find out ways of why this is happening and also prevent this. So my practice recommendations based on this research, my target population, and my problem of importance of ADHD is that children who have ADHD, they need to attend physical therapy and physiotherapy to best help themselves and help their parents and their teachers. With reducing the amount of screen time in children, especially with ADHD, this will cause less migraines. Children are needed to be started early in therapy if they had any signs of premature birth or low birth rates or brain damage. This could also really help maybe later in the developmental of them when they get to the adolescence or the early adulthood. Rural kids that attend government schools, they can actually make the class sizes smaller and require more tutoring, where more kids get that one-on-one, so it'll be less frustration and the ADHD is not likely to show through, or those who have ADHD can get more help with their teachers and understand. And like I mentioned, I would like to take a large sample of the rural and urban children that attend preschools or kindergarten to actually find the numbers of children who exhibit these signs of ADHD. And I would like to take a large sample, or have researchers take a large sample around the world, urban and rural children, and compare them to other areas of the world to see just how many kids have ADHD. And we can really confirm the race and the ethnicity and the cultures and compare them to see which have more ADHD in children. So here is my references, and this concludes my presentation. Thank you.